Hello everyone, this is Arrow and welcome to Sundown Moon Up Podfics. This is a fic called Fic Bullies by RandomWeirdCat. The summary is, when the League of Villains kidnap Shinsou, Hitoshi, and Midoriya Izuku, quite a few things come out on accident. Chapter 1. Damn it. 2 students were gone. The alarms never went off. Nobody saw anything. During the middle of the night, Izuku Midoriya and Hitoshi Shinsou just disappeared. No notes, no texts, no calls. Aizawa has watched the footage over and over. There was a camera in every hallway and in the living rooms of the dorms. He stares at Midoriya and Shinsou's doors and saw nothing. There was no noise. A few other students got up during the night and didn't suspect or hear anything. A hand on his shoulder makes him sigh. You've been staring at those screens for a good 2 hours. I think it's time to take a break. Shota leans back, pausing the footage as he did so. He glances at Hitoshi with bloodshot eyes. There's got to be something. There's nothing, Sho. Take a break. I know you're worried. We all are. Hitoshi pulls his chair away from the screens. The police and the students' parents have been contacted. They suspect the students were kidnapped, and the kidnappers had a teleporting or a stealth quirk. Shota rules out the stealth quirk. The alarms would have gone off instantly, and the students' doors never opened on their own. He rubs his eyes. We built the dorms to keep them safe, and what happens? The dorms didn't work. 2 students are gone. My problem child and my son are gone. Hisashi's fingers gently run through his hair. He stays quiet. Shota looks up into Hisashi's eyes. His hands reaches up as he strokes his cheek. We'll find them, Hisashi said in a quiet and hopeful tone. I know. Hitoshi was having the staring contest of his life. Red eyes stare him down, and he refused to blink. If he blinked, someone might strike. Someone might get hurt. Midoriya was right next to him in black shorts and a gray t-shirt. Hitoshi was lucky he didn't sleep that often and still wore his black sweatpants and a black tank top from earlier that day. The schoolgirl was staring at Midoriya with hungry eyes. Hitoshi didn't like her, not one bit. He could faintly see a pair of knives in her sleeves. The League of Villains kidnapped them, and now they were all just staring at each other. He and Midoriya had quirk-suppressing cuffs on their wrists, and rope constricting them to the hard-ass chairs they sat in. Well, this is awkward. Even without his quirk, he's still a talker. His social anxiety was still a bitch, though, so he wasn't a very good or nice talker. The red eyes finally blink, and he feels like he's won a prize. Maybe it's the hand on the bastard's face. Let's get to the point so I can just kill you two already. Handy Manny stood up and walked over to them. We need some information on UA. Our informants are occupied right now, and our other sources are assholes. Handy Manny grabs Hitoshi's face with 4 fingers. Feel like sharing? Midoriya yells at the hand jerk. Get away from him! Hitoshi glares. We aren't telling you anything. Handy Manny lets go of his face with a little push and turns around. I was hoping you'd say that, Dabi. The burnt piece of bacon steps forward. His hand reaches out and grabs Midoriya's shoulder. The smile on his face made Hitoshi's stomach turn. He heard of the villain's quirk. The burnt bacon strip had blue fire. The blue fire was the hottest fire out there, even hotter than the number 2 hero's flames. Hitoshi jolted in his seat. Don't! Midoriya's shoulder set on fire for a few seconds as blue fire burst from the man's hand. His world is crumbling quicker than he thought it would. Izuku! He screams in fear for his friend. The pain of the flames had to be worse than Todoroki's. He couldn't even imagine what kind of scream or howl Izuku was going to let out. He clenches his eyes and braces for the scream. There was silence. A pin could have dropped and they wouldn't have heard it. Hitoshi was afraid to open his eyes. What if Izuku passed out from the pain? What if he was still on fire? What if he was crying? He would start crying too. Slowly, he barely peeks through one of his eyes and sees Izuku was blankly staring up at the burnt bacon. Hitoshi opens both his eyes and his mouth falls open. Izuku's shoulder was red and skin was peeling. It looked like his skin was melting. Yet he looked like he didn't have a care in the world. The villain, Dabi, just stares down at Izuku. His smile was gone and his blue eyes looked haunted. He steps away from Midoriya. Izuku's shirt was still burned and smoking. His sleeve was completely gone and a bit of his chest showed. Hitoshi's mouth went dry. Midoriya? Izuku's eyes seemed to snap back to reality, and the light in them returned. Shinsou, are you okay? You screamed really loud. Hitoshi lets out a shocked laugh. Midoriya, your shoulder was on fire, and you're asking me if I'm okay? The young hero glances down at his shoulder. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Dabi looks over his shoulder at Handy Mandy. You should have screamed, or cried, or even winced. How many times have you been burned? Handy Mandy questions. You have second-degree burns. Others would be passing out right about now. Dabi spoke quietly. His eyes were cold and unamused. Hitoshi snarls. You fucking... Handy Mandy makes a hand gesture. Twice, can you take the cuffs off Lavender? Hitoshi would have laughed if it were anyone else calling him Lavender, but all he wanted to do was strangle everyone for even looking at Midoriya. Just do it already. The Pokemon man walks over with a skip in his step. He hesitates when unlocking the cuffs. The second the cuff slips off his wrist, a feral grin is on his face. Hey, you look like a Pokemon and a Pokeball. Twice, another verse tries to interrupt. I don't... The man freezes. Punch yourself. The man's fist slams into his face and he falls on his ass while clutching his face. Ow! What was that for? Do it again. Midoriya snickers, still ignoring his shoulder. Hitoshi reaches out and forgets that he's tied to a chair. Handy Mandy sighs. Nobody else answers him when he talks. His quirk is brainwashing. If anyone else does, make sure to punch that person or kick them. He taps 4 fingers on the counter. The misty bartender had golden eyes and was cleaning a glass. The mist guy had a warping quirk. He's the one that teleported them from the rooms to the shitty bar. The schoolgirl didn't reveal her quirk. Neither did the one with the magnet or the Pokemon guy. The guy with the cane and the smiling mask didn't really look that dangerous or tough either. He knew about Handy Manny though. His quirk could turn shit to dust. If he was quick enough, he could... A foot nudges his. He glances up and notices he zoned out for a second. Lavender, if you even think about trying to control one of us again, I'll make sure you lose that tongue of yours. Hitoshi bites his lip and sneers. Use your quirk on Midoriya. What? What? I'm not repeating myself. Do it, or else it's your turn getting burned. Fuck. Hitoshi looks at Izuku and clenches his fist. The other guy gives him a shaky smile. It's okay. But Hitoshi stops himself. He could get burned, right? He could handle it. Yeah, he'd be fine. The melting shoulder doesn't look... His knees shook. He couldn't handle that. He'd pass out like they said. Then they'd go back to torturing Midoriya and burning him. They'd completely focus on him instead. Fuck. Izuku, what do you call a pig that knows karate? A pork... Izuku's eyes went white, and his face blinks again. Hitoshi's lip quivers. The other boy didn't even hesitate to try and answer him. Ask him when the next trip is. They were using them to get information. Damn it. Tell me when's the next trip. It was in a few days. Aizawa-sensei will probably postpone it now. The dull answer felt wrong. The dullness of Izuku's voice was awful. Ask about how 1A is training their quirks. How is 1A training their quirks? Ayama is dealing with stomach pain and is trying to see if making the laser beam smaller reduces the pain and training to make the beam last longer. Ashido is trying to make her acid into a ball and control how strong it is and see the limit of what she can melt. Asui is trying to see the limit of how cold the temperature has to be before she goes into hibernation. Ida is trying to see if he can outrun... Okay, shit. How much can he remember about them? Handy Manny interrupts and slumps down into a stool. He studies quirks, so he remembers a lot. Hitoshi felt like smacking himself. He studies them. Damn, powerful and super smart. The perfect hero. The lizard man spoke from the corner of the room. Should it? Handy Manny stares at Izuku's shoulder. How many times has he been hurt? Hitoshi felt wrong for wanting to know the answer as well. He heard and saw Izuku break his arms and legs in a fight, and he kept going through the pain until he was forcefully knocked out. How many times have you been burned? Or hurt? Lost count. Izuku's dull voice replies, and Hitoshi jolts with surprise. The schoolgirl bounces on her feet. Ooh, ask how many times he's bled. What type of blood does he have? Ask. Toga, shut it. How many times has he been burned? How? Hitoshi's voice cracked. He has to bite his tongue to try and stop the tears from swelling in his eyes. How many times have you been burned? Lost count. Well, what number did you stop counting at? Hitoshi's own anger seeps through before he can stop himself. Nobody can just lose count of how or be that clumsy. Someone has been hurting Izuku. Some sick bastard. 2,153. The air was thick with tense air. Silence runs through the bar. Hitoshi didn't try and stop the angry and fearful tears that spilled down his cheeks. How does someone get burned that many times? Hitoshi wants to wrap his arms around Izuku and disappear. He wanted to go home and hug Izuku until the day ended, or until his dads came to rescue them. A sob escapes his throat. His control wavers and the green comes back to Izuku's eyes. He looks around in a confused panic. His eyes land on Hitoshi. Are you okay? He struggles against the ropes and cuffs. He tugs and pulls to get closer to Hitoshi. His green eyes look up and he glares at the villains who made his friend cry. Control him again. Hitoshi sobs. No, Izuku, what? A hand grabs his shirt and pulls him up from the chair. Red eyes were blaring with rage. Control him, Handy Manny spoke through his clenched teeth. Izuku. Shit. Green disappears again. Izuku stops struggling and goes limp. Dobby steps in and pushes Handy Manny off of him. Ask him if he's been abused. This is getting personal. Weren't they just after information on UA? Were you abused? Yes. Another sob. The tension spikes and the villains got closer. Ask if his parents ever hurt him. Do your parents hurt you? No. The lizard and the man with the cane were walking towards them. Who the fuck goes that far? The lizard screams and his hands pull at his hair. Spinner, compress, breathe. The misty man spoke through the tension. The other with the large magnet sat on the stool and put their head down. The schoolgirl peeks out from over Twice's shoulder with a frown. Toshi, can you ask if Izu has bullies? Were you bullied? Yes. Dobby clicks his tongue. Shit, that's a little extreme for bullying. Hitoshi glares daggers through tears. Fuck all of you. Fuck bullies. The lizard, spinner, compressed, whatever his name was, he looked pissed. Ask if he remembers the bullies' names. Do you remember the bullies' names? Ren Tsubacha, Yuka Masaka, Lia Okiyaka, Taiga Naigo, Katsuki Bakugo, Ichiru Riram, Mira. His chest clenches and unclenches. Bakugo. Izuku called him Kachan. They were childhood friends. That couldn't be right. Stop. Izuku stops naming off the soon-to-be dead people. Hitoshi takes a deep breath to calm his pounding heart and raging mind. He's never felt so much rage. Even with his past bullies, they never attacked or abused him. Dobby sits down. They could all see blue flames sparking to life around his face and hands. Bakugo, the one who won the sports festival, the one with their head down, finally spoke. They took off their sunglasses and rubbed their eyes. Yeah. Handy Manny holds out his hand. Kirigiri, I need something to dust. Kirigiri sighs and hands him a glass. 5 fingers grasp the cup and it shatters. The glass barely cuts Handy's fingers before it turns to dust. That didn't help. Handy Manny reaches out for his face. Hitoshi tenses and waits for the pain. Death was so close. Open your eyes, Handy Manny says. I don't want to. I don't care. Hitoshi opens his eyes and sees a pale hand in front of his face. He's been burned. Bakugo has that explosion quirk. Ask one more question, then we're done. Done? As in you'll kill us? Hitoshi glances at the dull Izuku. His plan was to take control of either Handy Manny or Dobby after the questions and make them attack the others. A small distraction could help his plan. He could try to loosen his ropes again and maybe grab Midoriya, then he could try and get out the door. Ask what's the worst thing Bakugo's done. What's the worst thing Bakugo's done? Kachan almost made me leave my mom. Izuku's shoulders dropped and his head cracks to the side. The grin returns to his eyes and he looks up at Handy Manny and Hitoshi. What's going on? Shinsou, are you okay? Sugar... Izuku began screaming. He didn't even notice everyone was staring at him with rage and sorrow. Midoriya, please calm down. Kirigiri walks over. He stood by Izuku's side and looks at his wound. I'll be right back with a healer. What? Izuku watches as Kirigiri disappears. Izu? The schoolgirl's hungry eyes were dim with sadness and bright with something feral. Are you suicidal? And that's the end of this chapter. This is my first time reading anything for a long period of time, as you can probably guess. So it's gonna sound broken and all over the place because my voice has a really hard time talking for so long. So I hope it isn't as bad, and I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon. Bye.